I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Meeting will now come to order. All right. And the first thing we do is first order of business, which is public announcements. And any detail may be found at www.fairfieldme.com. Fairfield's annual town budget meeting referendum, MSAD number 49, board member, MSAD 49, school budget validation referendum elections will be held at the community center on June 8th, 2021. Absentee ballots will be available May 10th and may be requested by calling 453-7911. Annual spring cleanup is scheduled for Monday, May 17th through Friday, May 21st. And the Fairfield Farmers Market opens mid-May and is held on Wednesdays from 2 to 6 and Saturdays from 9:30 to 1:30. The market is located at the Fairfield Church of Nazarene at 81 Main Street. Then we move to the second order of business, which is public hearings. Has the manager overviewed Zoom protocols to participate?
All right. So for any member of the public that is out there in Zoom land, the way that this works is that if you would like to speak during the public hearing, please go down to the bottom of your screen under reactions and click on the raise your hand button, and you will be called on to speak. And then you will put your hand down after you do speak. Please make sure that your microphones stay muted until it is your turn to speak, and then once you are done speaking, please re-mute your microphone.
Okay. The public hearing is to hear from the public on the annual town budget meeting warrant. I hereby declare the public hearing open.
Like me to do a quick little overview?
You can if you want.
All right. I'm going to share my screen here. All right. So that folks at home can see this. The biggest important pieces of this always is what is the grand total. So right down here in this area, you will see where we're at with expenses minus revenues for the municipal side of things. The municipal budget overall is up $16,910.50, which is a 0.75% increase over last year. Expenses for all of the various different departments listed here total $6,002,272. The Town Council and the Budget Committee both recommend the same exact budget this year. Revenue projections are at $3,732,497.50. So meaning that from taxation, we'll have to raise $269,774.50. We do have down at the bottom of these spreadsheets, and these sheets are located on our website, and they will be in the town report that will be available shortly. We have what we have to put aside for First Park, which is down $11,000 this year. First Park, for the first time, has created what is looked to be a revenue neutral budget. So everything that we pay in, we should get back, depending on Oakland's tax collection piece. The county budget has a 1.48% decrease. So that is projected to be at $918,614.46. And then the school budget appears to be down $92,880 for Fairfield's portion at $4,591,352, giving us a grand total of a budget this year of $7.8 million, which is roughly $100,000 less than last year. One of the major components that was just released today, revenue projections for the state are up. That was released last week. New revenue sharing projections were posted last Friday. They were posted using the 3.75% that was in the original budget. The governor announced today that she will be putting revenue sharing at 4.5%. We don't know what our number will look like at 4.5%, but at 3.75 with the increase, revenue sharing is projected to be at $962,000. That's more than $200,000 than what we had put in the budget. So you have to use revenue sharing to decrease property taxes. It can't be used for any other purpose. So what happens is we use a projected number when the budget is created, because it's very early. When the tax commitment actually gets here, we're into July, and we know what that number is going to be. So if we were to use $900,000 in the budget this year for revenue sharing numbers, it being a little bit on the conservative side, our budget's going to be down approximately $180,000. So that becomes another $200,000 less. So maybe you won't need to use as much undesignated fund money, and we'll know that better when the tax commitment gets here. Because right now we're projected to use $500,000 in undesignated fund for this budget, and you may very well be able to reduce that and still be able to definitely, maintain taxes, if not maybe bring them down a little bit. Because this year, of course, because we're not at 100% of assessment, if the mill rate was to stay the same, folks would see a minor increase in their property taxes simply because of the fact that we cannot give them the full amount of the homestead exemption because our assessment ratio is not at 100%. But hopefully with all of these different pieces of revenue, that won't happen, and folks will still be able to see that their taxes will stay the same or go down. The mailer was sent out. I have received 0 phone calls regarding the budget, and nor have I received any emails regarding the budget.
Is there anybody on the Zoom meeting that would care to comment?
Let's stop my screen share here. I can see everybody. And I don't see any raised hands. And most of the folks out in Zoom world are all department heads looking to answer questions if anybody has any questions.
Okay.
Except for the Morning Sentinel, which is Caitlin at the Morning Sentinel.
Oh.
Okay, anybody from the public wish to say anything?
Under public comment?
Yes.
No, this is for
No,
public
this is
hearing.
under the, this is for the,
Public hearing.
But do you want to speak
this
on the
is for the
budget, Gary?
budget.
Yeah, if you want to.
Something.
Is it the budget or something else on the agenda?
It's part of the budget.
Then step right up there.
You'll print and sign. You'll sign in.
After taking a quick look at the articles here, I noticed that the police budget has the highest amount, with the exceptions of the Article 29, reduction to taxes. That is the highest one. So the police budget comes in, that's the second highest one. And speaking about the police budget, I gotta say it. It's been 14 years, as of Monday, or as of this Friday, which one you want to look at. It's been 14 years since I was assaulted by 3 Fairfield police officers. Put me in the hospital for 5 days.
Gary, this is a public hearing regarding the budget,
Yeah?
So-
Well, I've said all I wanted to say.
so you need to keep it specific to that topic.
I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
14 years.
All right. Being no more comments, no more asks, I declare this public hearing now closed. Moving on to the third order of business, public comments. Limit 3-minute equivalent to public speaking. Members of the public may email comments for council at info@fairfieldme.com by 4 p.m. the day of the meeting on any topic or agenda item. Items may be read aloud at this time. Was there anything that was emailed? Okay, the public may speak on any matter at this time. Being none, move on to the fourth order of business. Reports from staff and committees. Town manager report,
As long as I can breathe.
if she can breathe.
Swallowed that water wrong. Okay. So on April 29th, there were 2 stories regarding Fairfield and PFAS and the public drinking water RFQ. Excuse me. That ran on 2 different stations, WLBZ and WGME. If you haven't seen them, you can go on YouTube and download those videos. Also on the 29th, KRDA held its annual budget meeting at the First Office parking lot to vote on the annual operating budget, which did pass unanimously. Recent media coverage of the town of Rome has been wishing to withdraw from KRDA, has led the executive board to seek a legal opinion regarding that subject so that it is clear to everyone. Information will be forthcoming at a later date. On May 4th, the Fairfield Economic Community Development Committee did meet, and you'll have that update afterwards. May 10th, the First Park Design Review Committee did meet to review plans for O'Keefe's dental practice. That project was approved with a few minor conditions, and construction should start soon. This is a very large new dental practice that's going to be relocating into the park. That's going to be really good. May 11th, which was yesterday, I attended the KVCOG Board of Directors meeting. There are several potential new and exciting businesses coming to the area, and the USDA revolving loan fund program that KVCOG does, those accounts have been consolidated. There were 5 different ones, which will make lending easier for them for potential businesses. The revolving loan fund through KVCOG is often, they're like gap loans where they're just that final extra mile for businesses after the banks are done. May 12th, which was this morning, I attended the Central Maine Growth Council Board of Directors meeting. It was reported at the meeting that the 2020 annual report for the Foreign Trade Zone 186, which we've all been following, showed a value of $109,978,553 worth of shipments that flowed through the foreign trade zone. So $110 million worth of product have gone through that trade zone, which just goes to prove that if you build it, it will come. So, which was really good. And then also the CDBG paperwork for mainly handrails project has been completed and everything has been submitted. They are hoping to close on that property by the end of the month. So that project is going well. And that's it for me.
Okay. Committee reports.
Okay.
Stephanie.
Thank you, John. The Economic and Community Development Committee met, and we talked about several things. There is still money available for small businesses through PPP funds. We should hear from the AARP Community Grant for Mill Island Park within 30 to 60 days. And we've also started to work on a waterfront plan based on recommendations from the comprehensive plan. That's it.
Okay, anybody else got anything else? Did you, any of your meetings, Peter?
Just Legislation Policy Committee's last meeting's tomorrow for the session. So, and all the bills will be looked at through the legislatures throughout the month.
Okay. Anybody got any questions or
Crawford? Crawford.
Crawford Fund?
Crawford Fund, yes, I met with SAD 49 yesterday, went over the available funds for their upcoming budget. They will be submitting a budget for next month's meeting for approval of funds up to the amount that was allocated. There was some questions on using carryover money, and we resolved those with as far as getting kids to go to camp possible day camp up at UMO this year. And I'll be waiting patiently for the budget that they submit for our June meeting approval.
Okay.
I thought they were scheduled for July.
What are,
I don't know, I'll have to look.
It usually is a July
It's July,
agenda.
it's like your first meeting in July when they come, but I think they give us the budget ahead of time so you can discuss it, so.
yes. We should have it for next month.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Moving on to the fifth order of business, the consent agenda. These items are considered routine or standard business and therefore will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussions of these items unless a council member so requests prior to consideration of this portion of the agenda, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered sequentially on the agenda. Item 2170, order that the town council, Fairfield Town Council, hereby waives the reading of and accepts the minutes for meeting number 2021-08 held on April 28, 2021. Item 2171, ordered the town council hereby approves the treasurer's warrant number 67 general fund in the amount of $518,807.11, not limited to but including MSAD 49, TIF payments, motor vehicle, EV charging stations, and playground maintenance.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Carries full. Moving on to the sixth order of business. To take action on the following items of business as read by the council chair. Ordered that the town council hereby considers a sewer abatement account for account number 335 at 86 Main Street for the Grover Hinckley American Legion Post 14 in an amount of $1,252.63. We have a letter from the Legion that says that what happened was that writing this letter because we had several water leaks in the boiler system and toilets were running all the time, so water bill was over $500. So sewer bill was $1,406.50. Could you please review this to give us a break on the bill? And
After you move in second, I can explain it further if you'd like.
okay,
So moved.
Second.
all right. You may explain now.
So what happens with these is that oftentimes if there's a leak like that, it's very obvious in someone's account. So what you do, we go back and we take the last 4 quarters and you average those bills. So what they had paid every quarter, an average of what they paid for over the last year, and that's what gets applied to that bill for that particular quarter. So this abatement is for the difference of that. Okay, so they would normally, quick doing the math, they'd normally pay they'd pay under $200 in a quarter.
Yeah.
And so we've averaged this. And you can see that's also included. For the last 3 years, the last quarters, it was 152, 103, 123. So we average that, and that's how we charge it.
Yeah.
So do we pay the difference on the bill?
So what will happen is no, we don't pay the difference. Nobody pays that.
Okay.
Okay, so the way it works is that we pay KSTD an annual fee based upon past usage. So they will bill us based upon the volumes that flow down through to them, that kind of stuff. Then in turn, the water district they regulate how much water you have. They report those numbers to us, how much water you used. So the Legion will ultimately pay for the water, period. Unless the water district decides to give them a break because it was a leak. But usually with water, if you used it, you pay for it. Doesn't matter where it goes. we will do a break for the sewer when there are in extremes, and oftentimes the water district will too, because it's just a hardship piece, and nobody ends up paying, it just gets written off.
More discussion?
So this would be more of a standard operating procedure that we've done in the past for other
Yes,
situations?
yes.
like-
This is how, anytime something like this was to happen, this is how it is handled in the past. So say you went away over the weekend and then you found out one of your pipes ruptured and you've put all of that water, in your basement. Or you've put all of the water outside in your back lawn because you left your hose running. It's sometimes so you can do it that way. Like if you can say that your hose blew and all of that water went outside and it didn't go down the sewer, we would use the same sort of practice. We would do an average. It's also how we used to treat pools. Now we have a pool meter. And because it's pool filling season, little public service announcement, come get the pool meter.
Yep.
You hook it to your hose. It'll count how much water went in your pool when you get a credit for that. So for those sort of things. But this is a pretty standard practice, and it's few and far between when it ever happens, but it is how we handle it.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? All right, we will call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries full. So the abatement is granted. All right, moving on to the seventh order of business, which is council workshop and other business. The first on the agenda is discuss affordable housing TIF.
So I have a question for council regarding the Mountain Ave TIF. In order for me to finish up the documentation and all of the math calculations that have to be done with it, is how you want to handle this TIF document. So the original TIF that we're getting ready to amend, and to back up a little bit, so what this does is housing TIFs work a little bit differently than regular TIFs, which an economic community development TIF is set up so that the monies that are collected due to the increase in property value created from a project are sheltered so that it doesn't affect the funds for school, doesn't affect what we pay to the county, it doesn't affect what we get in revenue sharing, decreases, those sort of pieces. And then those funds are set aside for specific economic development projects. They cannot be used to just generally reduce taxes. TIF funds are not allowed to do that. That's not the vehicle that they are. With housing TIFs, they have to be used for housing-related projects, and typically they're all low-income housing projects. And when you get a housing TIF district set up, it means that there's going to be low-income housing in that facility, can have other requirements, but it has to be maintained at a particular level throughout the course of the project. So the Mountain Avenue project, as well as the Waterville Housing Project, was in a TIF district that was created in 2006, and neither one of those projects have come to fruition. Mountain Avenue project is looking to go forward, but because the original TIF will expire in 2036, they've asked to be removed from the original TIF and have a new TIF district created so that it will go forward for the 30 years, so that they have what they need in a credit enhancement agreement to offset the cost of the development. So the way credit enhancements work is that is the portion of the taxes that you would collect on that project that you give back to the developer, which they in turn put into the project. And typically it is 75% of what you collect and what you shelter. So we have a couple of different things that we can do. We can shelter 100% of the increase in value and give the developer 75% of that 100%. Or we can put 25% into the general fund, which means it would be used to offset taxes, and 75% to the developer, and they would receive 100% of that 75%. So basically what I'm asking you is, do you want to have the town create a TIF fund in which we would collect tax dollars, put it aside, and use for a town-administered low-income housing project? Or would you prefer that the 25% that the town would be keeping go towards offsetting property taxes.
I need to review a little bit here.
And I expected questions, that's why this is here.
So, the Mountain Avenue project is generating a TIF, correct?
Well, we're generating the TIF,
We, as the town.
yes.
Right.
But because there's this project, the monies are going to be available.
Correct.
All right, so I've got that part right. We've talked about the request from the developers previously, so that 30 years from now would be 2051, and where they've had a slow start. And I think we agreed to that previously. And so now, we're looking at 25% to go into the general fund to offset property taxes versus,
25% into a specific fund
okay,
used for low-income housing development type projects that would be run by the municipality. So the other piece of this, which is how it was originally set up, okay, the original TIF was set up that way. We TIFed 100% of the project. And if funds were collected, and funds have never been collected because no project has ever happened, so we've never received any revenue for this. They were set up to specifically go towards a low-income housing projects that the town would administer and take care of. So back in 2006, the town office had a lot more staff. We do not have staff to cover this kind of project at this point in time. So if this is something that we did to use those funds, we would ultimately have to hire another person
Or an outside entity.
or an outside entity to manage those funds and the housing project.
Or we would have to partner with somebody that would manage.
Manage, yes. Yeah.
What type, what dollar volume are we looking at here? If throw a.
So preliminarily, the thought is that the Mountain Avenue project is going to invest roughly $7 million. It's going to be more than that, but when you're done, it's actually, the project itself, and I can read to you its description. In this document somewhere. Of course, you know I had it up and then shut my laptop, so. So, it's going to be substantial renovation to the Young Surgical Building, which was part of the Central Maine Sanatorium property located in Fairfield. The site consists of 3.96 acres, bounded by Mountain Avenue in the southwest and surrounded by woodland on the other sides. The existing building is brick exterior, concrete floor, built with 3-story and 2-story sections in a T shape. In addition to the proposed An addition is proposed at the rear of the existing building to accommodate 4 residential units. The building program consists of the following components: 28 units of interest-restricted rental housing for households where the head of household age 55 or older. All units are proposed to be income restricted to households earning at or below 60% of the area median income for Somerset County. The units will include a mix of 14 one-bedroom, one-bathroom units and 14 two-bedroom, one-bathroom units. Amenities will include a community room, community garden area, common laundry room, and 56 on-site parking spaces. There is no non-residential use anticipated for the facility, meaning they won't open it up to like commercial stores or that kind of stuff there. They believe the project total with all investments was listed at, is that I have totals, It's a total of $7.9 million.
So 8 million,
Is that a year or?
No, so that's the total investment that will be happening. But you have to remember, so some of this is, you've got design and engineering, at $250,000. That's not, that's not in the value of the property, which is why I've estimated it to be at $7 million.
okay, so tax revenue from that is going to be,
Roughly, at the current mill rates, $117,000.
so 25,000 a year would go into a tip for low-income housing. So in 10 years, we'd have $250,000 plus a little interest. $25,000 a year isn't going to do much for reducing taxes in the town.
But does the
But it
town,
would do a
Right.
lot for possibly going toward low-income housing, which we're in desperate need of in this area,
In a partnership program.
in a partnership program.
But that raises the question, who's going to oversee that money?
Well, in that, you would have that conversation when that time came, because it would still be, so you have to figure, one, we're not going to collect any property taxes on this project in the next year, because it's the value on April 1st, and construction hasn't happened. And what the TIF doesn't do, okay, so the other piece of this is that the current existing building value, those funds collected on that still go towards the general fund. It's only the improvements above and beyond where we're currently at. So we can't, it's not like you can say, okay, so they did this investment of $8 million. It already had a value of $100,000. So now we TIF the whole thing. That existing $100,000 is still generating property taxes that will go towards the regular general fund budget. It's only the above and beyond improvement that you shelter. So, and then, of course, too, what happens is that 25%, if you don't shelter it, that does affect the municipality's value, so that does affect what you pay in county and school and what you don't receive in revenue sharing. If you TIF 100% and the funds are there. Now, you can always TIF 100% of the project, we set those funds aside, and then say we need to change what we want to use them for as long as they're within the scope. You could amend the scope 5-10 years down the future of how you use down the road, but it does have to be used. There's just specific rules when it comes to low-income housing. Doesn't mean we do a low-income housing project, but maybe we help fund the utilities installation or access to a low-income project. You could use it to assist developers that also wanted to do low-income housing projects, those sorts of things.
It sounds like that would be the way to go to increase our chances or opportunities for more low-income housing, because it's like putting your money where your mouth is. If we want to have more low-income housing in the town, then we have to make sure that we can afford it and encourage it.
Right.
So, to me, it sounds like that might be the way to go. What do you guys think?
You're preaching to the choir. I'm already on board with that.
you just gotta find someone to manage it, or have a vesting group manage it. That means if you hire someone, that's gonna be more money out of the town.
No, it would come out of the TIF.
Jeff?
Yeah, because you'd have to put in pieces.
Right.
You can build in administration of the TIF district itself within
Or the
TIF dollars.
Too, if the town wants to become a housing developer or a keeper, that
Right.
determines.
Well, there's other projects that are being talked about.
There are other entities out there that do a lot of low-income housing, and
Because I know Waterville's running out of room. I know they want to move Fairfield on, coming this way up to Skowhegan.
Yeah.
I know for a fact, but down to Norwood. They want to start moving more.
So 10 years down the road, no pun intended on that one, but 10 years down the road, how would this TIF best benefit us as a town? So I'm thinking probably to have that 25%, it's like a designated fund.
You know,
So,
if you let it set for 10 years, you still haven't dropped the tax rate by a mil.
Right.
We'd have to let it say, what, 15
Yeah.
years to drop our tax rate by 1 mil for 1 year, and then you'd have to wait another 15 years for, so I mean, we're not gaining, the residents aren't gaining a lot by this, but
No.
if they had a place to move to, those that are retiring, or those in the area that would spend money or come to this area and make this their residence.
You gotta look too, you got the people getting older too, snowbirds. They come here for only 6 months and they leave for 6 months. We got a possibility of that too.
So basically what it is I just need to know in order to finish the document.
What do you
Because
need
what
to-
it's
what do you need
required
to
is
know?
you'll have to have a public hearing in order to do the approval. So if what I'm hearing is write the document so that it is 100% TIF'd, knowing that a developer could get a credit enhancement agreement for only 75% of it, get all those calculations done, and then include what could be done for projects and make them as broad as possible so that you can always fit them in there.
this would set precedents for further development, wouldn't it? Or is it done on a case-by-case?
So it is currently how the existing TIF is already written. Okay, so we've already done that. And it's always on a case-by-case piece. So typically, a credit enhancement agreement is done with only 75%. This is kind of the direction we've been going in to a developer, simply because of the fact that municipalities had no way of generating revenue, unless it was through property taxes, to do economic development activities. And it was, figure years ago when all the grants dried up and nobody was investing in anybody's community to do anything. So this was a great way to put money aside to save it for a specific purpose and project for economic development purposes. This one is not just economic development, it's low-income housing and those sort of pieces. And low-income housing projects to fit within TIF districts, the housing TIF, they don't have to be 100% low income. You assert that it will be a certain percentage, and you just have to guarantee that you maintain it to be at that percentage. And it comes with an annual report that we have to send to the state every year about what's going on within the development itself. So it's not any different than where we were at. It's just that the question has come up whether we wanted to put a portion of it towards the general fund or not. And now I can just finish writing this TIF district just exactly the way it was, and just with the amendment. There are some other components that we're still waiting on, actually. So this has taken so long because what's actually had to happen was the original TIF had to be amended, and then the new TIF had to be created. And we're waiting on feedback from Waterville Housing Authority because they also haven't done a project and would be in the same exact boat if they did. So what you may end up getting is a request to completely blow up the original TIF, and that we would discontinue the entire existing TIF district. And know that if Waterville Housing Authority wanted to come forward and do a project on their land that they have that's located in the Shaman area, we would do the same exact thing for them, a new TIF district for them. Because the way housing districts work, usually it's a specific one location, one property, one entity, as opposed to like our gas pipeline TIF that covers the entire region that the gas pipeline affects. So that's a little bit of the difference when it comes to housing TIFs. They're done very specific. We just happened to do one in 2006 with 2 different locations, and they were allowed to merge them together into one document. So write it up, 100%, 75% eligible for a credit enhancement agreement.
Yep.
That works?
Yep.
Perfect.
So that works
Thank
for
you.
everybody?
That's exactly what I needed to get this finished.
Okay. Second. Discussion. was to discuss the RFQ public drinking water expansion planning.
And what does the Q stand for again?
What does the what?
Request for quote.
Qualifications,
Oh,
not quote.
Not quote.
I always
There's
get that
no
mixed
money
up.
involved in this request whatsoever.
Oh, so this is not an RFQ, it's an RFQ.
It's an RFQ.
Oh, okay.
That's what I said, RFQ.
And I printed the list of who submitted plans. I can't probably know off the top
Oh,
of
I
my
thought you
head.
meant RFQ.
So
Oh,
the deadline for the RFQ was last Friday. We have received 5 submissions, all from wonderfully qualified firms. So we have, we received a submission from Dirigo Engineering, A.E. Hodgson, Wright Pierce, Woodard and Curran, and Haley. They're formerly CES, but their name has changed. Which CES is the firm that handles our landfill. Anyway, so part of that RFQ is that it would be, their qualifications would be reviewed. What we're looking for is the firm that is best suited to help guide us through the expansion of public drinking water and what that looks like and what that picture is. So the RFQ states the fact that it will be reviewed by the town council, but we never really discussed how you wanted to handle that review. So that's why we're here. So we do have the 5 different firms that have submitted. Garvin from the Settlement Growth Council is in the process of creating basically a checklist based upon the RFQ that we put out, so to see whether firms have met those requests that we have.
pros, cons thing?
Yeah, kind of piece. So we're working on developing that. I've had a couple of folks who've reached out to me that would be interested in reviewing. One would be Roger Kraus, who is the executive director for the Kennebec Water District, also formerly from Maine Drinking Water, so he is familiar with the processes. And then also, I was contacted by Mike Watson, who lives right here in town. Mike used to work for CMP, he's retired at this point, but this is kind of what he used to do for a job, was reviewing this kind of documentation. He is affected by the PFAS contamination, as well as one of the ones on the list, but he has volunteered to assist with this process. So not sure whether or not council wanted us to create like a smaller subgroup that was going to review and report back. Do you just want copies of all of the RFQs so you can review them at your leisure and go over the checklist and then we'll report back? Just kind of some ideas of how you want to go about doing this selection.
Should there be an ad hoc committee? We can't have more than 3 counselors, though.
Right.
Why don't they
Can't have more than
review it
2.
and give
More
us,
than 2, you can't have more than...
have them submit their recommendations?
Well, and that's what I'm thinking. I mean, you all can still have a copy of all of, I have we had them submit 7 copies. So there's an original for every single counselor. So you'll have the opportunity to do that. Also have the checklist. You can do your own review if you'd like to, that kind of stuff. But to get going on it and get working on it and that sort of stuff and know. And it may be one of those pieces where it's not, we can do a smaller subcommittee that will do a review, report back, but we don't even actually have to officially meet. There's a lot of it that can just be done through Zoom and email if everybody's doing their own independent review. And then it'll all come back to council, and then you in turn will have a conversation about which firms you want to talk to. And again, the reason why it's an RFQ is because it's about their qualifications, and it's not about money at this point. There's nothing in there so that you don't end up selecting a firm who maybe isn't as qualified simply because they're cheaper. It's really about the quality of the piece. And the reason it was done that way is oftentimes that can be a requirement for federal funding, is that you do this process first and then the money component afterwards. So what we did is when we set about this process was to ensure that whatever we did for efforts now didn't have to be repeated later should we get a funding opportunity. So that's kind of why it was done this way.
Yeah. I know I would like to have a copy of whatever that has been sent in, so I can study it.
You got another book?
They're all
Right, man.
individual.
Because you'll fill it full of questions.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got a whole section here not used yet, so.
Oh, no, you'll need a whole.
No, you need a binder.
A whole,
binder.
a binder full, yeah.
Yeah.
I do want, I think, and I commend these gentlemen that have stepped up and volunteered to assist us. I think that's wonderful.
I'd like to see their input on it.
Yeah.
I'd like to have them go through it and check it out personally.
Could we do a workshop part of our meeting based just on that when it's
Yeah.
time?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Presentation or
I
something?
think that would be good, get
Yep,
our
definitely.
gentlemen here, and we can have a powwow, or so to speak, so,
Yep.
conversation.
Yep, we definitely can do that. And then in the meantime, I can make sure that you each have copies of them. And we also have it electronically as well. That was part of the requirement, is not only did they have to submit hard copy, but they did have to submit an electronic copy. So if you'd like to have it, just so you can look at it on your computer and not necessarily want all of the bound copies, we can make that happen for
How
you
many
too.
pages are we talking about per business, roughly?
So each one's probably,
Oh, my word.
yeah, it's...
Pretty thick, isn't it? I'll need a
I think they're
hard copy.
probably, each one's probably less than 100 pages.
Oh, my word.
I haven't actually started the
each one,
review.
So, you know,
I opened them today.
about 600 pages.
So we got them opened and made sure all the components that were supposed to be there were there. I haven't actually started the review
Yeah.
process myself.
Something that thick, I need a hard copy because I need to
Yeah.
take my notes on marginalia.
So, and basically what they're going to be doing is detailing projects similar to what we're asking for, what they've done, where they've done them, where their successes were, that kind of stuff. And it'll give you an opportunity to kind of research some of the various different things that they cite, that they specialize in. But I was very pleased because we did receive interest from some very good firms, so it was good.
Wow. Big business.
Okay, so that's what we'll do. I will get these copies out to everyone. I will have folks, basically have Mr. Watson and Mr. Kraus give me an idea of how long they think it will take them to review, and we'll use that as a guideline as to when we'll do your big workshop item.
Cool.
Okay. Any other words on this from anyone? All right. And then we'll go on and discuss other council business. We'll start with Stephanie.
Do we have a record of businesses in town that is like, has electricians, plumbers, so that if we do a project, because we don't use the Sentinel anymore for public notices, RFPs, that's request for proposals. So how do we get information out, like when we're going to do a project, and if we've got citizens that are capable of handling something like this, how would they know about it?
So we still advertise on our website. We still advertise on our social media platforms. And depending on the project, it may actually get published in the paper, but
Yeah.
typically we use the town line and not the Sentinel, simply because of the fact of the cost difference. It's just cheaper. It's all there is to
Do we
it.
use MMA website?
And we use the MMA website.
Okay.
And then the other thing that we do oftentimes, so like, if it's a specific kind of project, so like if we're gonna procure a dump truck, there are firms that, there are companies we know that specialize in dump trucks. So we direct mail the bid documents to them or send them a direct notification. And part of our bid process internally, we keep a list of every single person that was directly notified. And then people will call us oftentimes to get on the list, but not a central in-house. I mean, sometimes you get that, but more often than not, it's the department heads. Like, I want to be, the next time you bid out culverts, I'd like to be included in that bid. And they'll keep a running list of folks that have contacted them for that. So if you're somebody that's local and you want to be a part of that process, certainly contact us and we can do that.
I know I've asked about that before, but
Yep.
it's just, I'm still the newspaper. in the
Because I know what
hand.
Ralph Council has, in Waterville, when new people come there, they give a list out of people or businesses within the area, but if they need something, so.
Yeah. I just,
And you used to be, so like businesses located within town, you can go to our website and search by type.
yeah.
And usually, as long as they've given us the right type, they'll pop up
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. But for the town, for
Is
bid
that up to
purposes,
date?
No.
Because
That
I
feature
know that
doesn't work.
business part.
not as,
It
no.
doesn't work anymore.
It doesn't.
So,
So maybe
that's another
something
thing we're
we
working on,
should
website development.
do list. Yeah.
Well, that, and they don't always tell us when they go out of business. So it's one
Right.
thing they tell me when, you know, they come and they let us know when they're going into business, but they don't always let us
They
know.
don't always tell us when they leave.
I did have somebody talk with me this week concerning a town newsletter done quarterly. And again, we used to do it years ago, and we don't have the staff in the town office to do it. But is that something that you think we should really have, is a quarterly newsletter?
I think folks would get more information if they went to the website and read the monthly manager's report that you all get, where each department head reports in what they've done, as opposed to a newsletter. You'd get probably more information than what would be in a newsletter, but we don't have the staff currently to do that. I mean, if somebody wanted to volunteer to do a newsletter for the town, we could certainly give them ideas of things to work on, but if you want to know what's going on in town, that monthly report will pretty much tell you everything that every single department is doing.
Yeah, I was going to say, the only thing you could do is, if you wanted to, is to kind of condense this into something that looks more like a newsletter with the reports
Right.
on it, because you're right, all the information that we have is right in here, tells everything that's going on in the entire town right in that packet. We get it we get it at...
You get it at
before
the top of
meeting.
every month, your
Yeah.
first meeting of the month, and it is posted on our website.
So maybe it's something, do you think we should have, though, a newsletter? It's one thing to have that, but there's other things besides.
So it would be the same issue, okay? So you're not going to mail it to every single person in town.
Right.
So it still require people to actually go and get the information, and the information's already available.
Social media does it, you just have to spend time looking.
You just have to look for it. It's on our website. It's posted in the same spot every month. You just have to go to the same spot and get it. So you still end up with the same piece, and then it's like, the library does a newsletter, and that goes out, and copies come here, but it's the same thing. It's on their website, it's on social media, you have to go look for it.
I think it's a changing of the times.
Yes,
I'm done now.
no, Christine.
Council officially made that transition when you were updating council policy goals and standards. I can't remember if it was 2 years ago, but the quarterly newsletter was discontinued for all the reasons Michelle just mentioned.
There hasn't been a town newsletter since I've been here,
Yeah, that was,
and that's more than
So-
5 years ago. Yeah, because we didn't have one when I got here.
Yep.
I'm done, thank you.
Mr. Taylor.
I'm all set this evening.
Okay. The only thing I've got actually is, we just wanted to bring this up, which I thought was quite promising. This is a letter that we got from the Maine Historic Preservation Commission, and it applies to 50 Mountain Avenue, which is a young surgical building. And at a meeting of the Maine Historic Preservation Commission held on April 23rd, the young surgical building in Fairfield was approved for nomination to the National Register of Historic Places. The nomination will be sent to the Chief of Registration in Washington, D.C. for consideration. And so it's just notifying people in that, but I thought that was quite...
Yes. And that's part of, that.
Quite nice.
That's the same exact structure that we were talking about with that housing tip.
Yeah, no, I know it.
So, and this will allow them to be eligible for historic preservation credits and grants kind of stuff. For
Right.
the building. So yeah, it was good. I don't think we've had a structure added to the historic registry for a long time.
No.
Oh.
Peter?
Just, I know we haven't had an update in a long time, but the Robert Dale, 201.
So Mr. Dale is working on getting back into compliance after the year of COVID. And there are all kinds of other various components going on with that in the background that I really can't discuss publicly, but we're having conversations with them. So the code enforcement officer and the fire chief went and started going back and visiting him at the beginning of April, I think it was, this year, so.
Yeah, because it's still,
Oh, yeah.
He's making a little bit
Worse
more
than it
progress,
was.
but he's not where he needs to be at this point, but.
not even close.
No, that's it.
And of course, he was back in the news too in Hollowell, where
I missed
evidently
that.
we were contacted and he was cleaning up his space in Hollowell and bringing the Hollowell material here.
Over here, yeah.
Is what we were told, and that's what the press said. We're not sure. That's what prompted the code enforcement officer to go and speak with him to make sure he was aware that that was not allowable and directly against his agreement. So they're working on that.
That's it.
I'm good.
Mr. Cooper, you good? Okay. Then what we will do at this point in time, our next regular meeting will be held on Wednesday, May 26th, 2021, and it will be a hybrid meeting via Zoom in the council chambers starting at 6:30. We will now go into a recess to sign all documents that require the signatures of council members.
Motion to recess.
So moved.
Second.
We are recessed.